Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome everybody to Morris Talk Live 100. I'm your host, Tahaka Amana El Bey. And tonight, how the Ethiopians became Christians and Falasha Jews. That's going to be the title of the broadcast tonight. My special guest will be Dr. Walter Williams. He'll be with us tonight and he'll give us a breakdown on exactly how it was that the Ethiopians became Christians and Falasha Jews. Will we be able to come to a conclusion about this tonight? The number to dial into this broadcast will be 515-605-9757. That's 515-605-9757. Later on in the broadcast, we'll open up the phone lines. Press 1 on your phone. That'll give us an indication that you have something to say, and open up the phone lines so you can get in. What is exactly is a Christian? Who can be a Jew? Are the Jews a race of people? Where did Jews come from in the first place? What records outside of the Bible can we use to find Jews? Where is Jew land? Where is that at? Okay. These are just a few of the questions that we will be dealing with tonight. Keep in mind, I would like to recommend that you get a paper and pencil and write down the necessary information that you need in order to follow this broadcast, okay? And to take notes on the information that will be presented to you this evening. I'm going to go over here to the commercials, and I'll be right back. But before I go to the commercial, let me start off by saying something. We're at critical mass right now, and in my opinion, there's no other time greater than the day for you to master the art of functioning in the private as a secured party. and a creditor instead of a debtor. Now is the time. We have upheavals inside the United States. We got all kind of stuff going on, man. And now is the time for you to protect yourself. Get out of the public arena and start functioning in the private as a secured party. Stop being a creditor. I mean a debtor. Be a creditor and stop being a debtor. Now is the time. In my opinion, there's no other time in the history of the United States where this opportunity is presenting itself, and it's so vital for you to know this. It's a whole nother world. Go to my website at tahakadeelimination.org and contact me. You can put your information in the contact us box, and I'll rush my free report to you so you can become abreast of this stuff. tahakadeelimination.org. Now is the time for you to function in the private and get out of the public. Now is the time. Hold on a minute.
Credit card debt, student loan debt, lawsuits, child support, mortgages, foreclosure, secured party, and creditor. Get my free report. Go to www.tahakadeelimination.org. That's tahakadeelimination.org. What kind of trust do you set up? How do you use a trust? What do you put in a trust? For the solution, contact me, Tahaka Amana L. Bay. Get my free report by going to tahakadeelimination.org. Driver's license, freedom to travel. Who exactly needs the driver's license? What did the U.S. Supreme Court rule about it over and over again? How does that work? What is proper syntax grammar? Get my free report. Go to tahakadeelimination.org. Fill out the little contact form, put your email address in there. That'll come straight to me, and I'll rush it directly to your email, tahakadeelimination.org. Real estate is booming today. But one thing I learned a long time ago about mortgages and foreclosures, the real estate market goes in cycles, up and down. The best thing to do is get out of that type of situation early. The U.S. corporation is still operating in a bankrupt state today. Make no mistake about it. When it comes to your home, the bank has no skin in the game. When you sign for your home, it was paid for. Learn how to do that. The IRS is a private-for-profit corporation. Learn how to deal with that. Go to tahakadeelimination.org. That's tahakadeelimination.org. How do you discharge debt? How do you write it up? What do you do? Learn how to do that. Contact me, Tahaka Amana L. Bay. Go to tahakadeelimination.org. Peace. What a fantastic way to live. Hello, I'm Tahaka Amana L. Bay, operating in the private as a secured party and creditor instead of living the life of a debtor. Now, to learn how to do that, you have to get the knowledge. There's no doubt about it. You don't mix public with private, just like oil and water don't mix. For the skill and know-how, go to www.tahakadeelimination.org. That's tahakadeelimination.org. Contact me, Tahaka. My number is on the website. Or send me an email. That's tahakadeelimination.org. Learn how to live the good life as a secured party and a creditor instead of a debtor, and eliminate your debts. Fun time is almost over. tahakadeelimination.org. Hi, I'm Tahaka. By January the 26th or 28th, 2022, the U.S. government corporation will begin calling for full payment of student loan debt again. The pause will be over. Don't wait until the last minute. Get out of debt now. You have plenty of time now. Go to www.tahakadeelimination.org. That's tahakadeelimination.org. It's just like someone filing bankruptcy. After you have filed and the deadline arrives, you still owe the debt. It's a scam. Go to TahakaDebtElimination.org. Contact me, Tahaka, for what you need to solve the problem. Peace. Don't.
Welcome back to Black News Tonight. 3,000 strong African Hebrew Israelites have been calling the State of Israel home since 1969. But there remains an ongoing push to deport them in gradual steps. A recent report by the Times of Israel reveals that last Thursday, the Interior Ministry's Population and Immigration Authority has sent 51 members of the Hebrew Israelites letters ordering them to leave by September 23rd. And these letters were dated August 9th, shortening the deportation time frame by a whole month. Hebrew Israelites live predominantly in the southern city of Dimona. The mayor of the town, Benny Beton, is against the deportation tactics and recently released a statement. In it, he says, "In a conversation I had with the Interior Minister, we arranged for an urgent hearing in her office in order to cancel the deportation of members of the Hebrew community. In addition, Minister Shaked promised to freeze the deportation proceedings until the hearing. Residents of Dimona, members of the Hebrew community, I want to tell you one thing. As long as I'm here, I will not lend a hand in this horrible expulsion." Joining me now from Dimona, Israel, is Sar Amadiel Ben Yahuda. He is the Minister of Information for the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem. Shalom, my brother. Welcome to the show. The Interior Ministry's Population and Immigration Authority sends y'all these letters, and it's not the first time that this is happening. The Dimona mayor is standing by your community. If you have the mayor supporting you, you all have been there for over 50 years. So many people have supported you. How is this happening? Why is this happening now?
Shalom, Mark. Good to speak with you again, and thanks for having us. Indeed, that is the question, and particularly the timing is very, very inappropriate. We're on the eve, the literal eve of the highest of the high holy days here, Yom Kippur, a day that's set aside for atonement and reconciliation among brethren. And this is how the Ministry of Interior, this is the message that they send us. That's troubling for us. That's certainly the height of inappropriateness. Where is the sensitivity? But as you said, this isn't something new. We've been here before throughout our history here, and there's no question that some of these, not some, but all of that 51, that they did fall between the cracks of legality where the immigration laws were concerned. But I would remind your viewers and remind, obviously, those who sit in the Ministry of Interior offices that Israel was founded upon the idea of an illegal immigration. It is how the State of Israel came into being, part and parcel of it. Those who were engaged in those activities 50, 60, 70 years ago, rather, that they are enshrined forever as heroes and heroines in the history of Israel. And so we find it quite inappropriate, quite disingenuous to serve these notices on the eve of this holy day.
You weren't surprised by the ruling, which is interesting. I mean, when you came on the show a couple of months ago, some people had gotten notices. There was some hope that there'd be a stay, that there'd be some kind of pushback, that the state would change its mind. But since then, there hasn't been. Why are you not surprised that there hasn't been a change in sentiment or a change in policy from the state toward the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem?
Well, we're not surprised simply because this was an appeal to the same ministry and the same departments and the same functionaries who sit in the offices of the Ministry of Interior that were asked to make the appeal, and to ask them to rule against themselves was not quite, it wasn't something we had a lot of hope in. These are religious party functionaries. These are right-wing elements. And I have to be frank and say that these are racist elements that actually still hold many of these positions in that particular ministry. And that's not just us talking. there's a report that was prepared for a government ministry, was the Ministry of Diaspora Affairs, and a rabbi, in one of his comments, he says there are clear racial elements in the Ministry of Interior, and some of its employees seem to harbor a hostile approach. Said these people should be removed from their posts. So we're not surprised that this is going to require a legal and or political resolution. And so we're still hopeful, and we see indications that such is in the works. Again, the mayor is a great supporter. He does have certain clout and inroads that may appeal to the voices of reason. There was a new government finally after nearly 2 years of being in limbo here. There were no budgets. So what I'm saying is that it's a very, very fragile coalition that they were able to cobble together, and no one wants to upset a lot of these different support and elements within that coalition. So we'll see what happens, but we do see indications that they're looking for a way that they can come up with a resolution that doesn't compromise their fragility.
So, I mean, this is very confusing to me. It's always been very confusing to me. You know, I've spent a great deal of time there. Spent time with you in the community. I've seen what goes on there. I've never fully understood why at this juncture, why there'd be such a push to get you out. Race seems to be an issue that you're raising. I mean, many of the members were born and raised in Israel. They've never lived anywhere else. Many have served in the IDF. They served in the Israeli military. They've done the things that Israeli citizens do. What's their reason? I mean, what reason can they give other than we just don't think you belong?
I don't know of anything that makes any sense, Mark. It does tie back. It does have its roots in a great fear. We would say it's an irrational fear, but it's a fear of the people of African ancestry all over the world that do have links to this land, and it's a fear of their awakening and wanting to identify and specifically wanting to then immigrate here. But let's deal with just one group, and we're not talking about the Africans in America, though. That's a major group in itself. Let's talk about the Igbo of Nigeria. Let's talk about the.
Let me pause you for 1 minute, Amadiel, because I want you to get to the Igbo because that's actually an interesting point. But I want to play devil's advocate just a little bit here. The state of Israel will say, we're not racist. Yeah. We had Operation Moses. We've had Operation Jacob. We have literally airlifted Ethiopians during war and famine from the continent of Africa, from Ethiopia, and brought them into the state of Israel and made them citizens. So if we brought them in, clearly we're not racist. Maybe it's y'all. What do you say to that?
First of all, we have knowledge that there are more than 240,000 more than were airlifted of Ethiopian Jews remaining in Ethiopia that the country has not moved to bring here, that are waiting, that want to come and immigrate to Israel, that have family members here. We would say, what happened to the continuation of that particular effort? It smacks of possibly that this was just a stopgap measure to say exactly that we're not racist because we've done X, Y, and Z. And we would say that that's disingenuous on their part.
What can you say to people who say, why do you want to be there? You're black people, your origins are in Chicago, at least in modern history, Chicago, right? Ben Amin Ben Israel, left Chicago, went to Liberia, then goes to Israel. Y'all are from Chicago. Why not just go somewhere else? Why do y'all want to be in Israel so bad? What do you say to them?
Well, you're right. I'm from D.C. And by the way, Mark, from Philly, conceived in Philly. We would simply say that we know that 60%, right, I knew that. We would say that 60%, it is known that 60% of the Africans in America came through the port of Charleston, and that upwards of 60% of them were probably of Igbo origin, West African ethnic origins. Well, the Igbo, their historical narratives, their saga, their migration sagas point them to Israel. And so our legitimate search for identity led us back to Israel, not just to West Africa. The threads of our cultural continuity did not stop or begin in West Africa. They continued back to this land. Israel is Northeast Africa. So this is the land of our ancestry. We're Judeans. We're not Jewish in the sense of being adherents to Judaism and the tenets of that religion. We are Judeans, so we actually live in southern Judea. This is where I've made my home for the last 40 plus years, where we as a community have lived for 50 plus years. So there is an authentic, proven by some DNA testing, that authenticates our presence here and our ties here. And if indeed this is our ancestral land, then the Ministry of Interior needs to wake up to some things and understand that there are some spiritual and metaphysical consequences that would be the result of them trying to deport us at this particular time.
How does this end?
That's a good question, Mark. We're hopeful, and our hope again does not lie in the political or the legal. We have faith and hope. We are spiritual people. We believe in the organic link of the man and the land. We would simply say, as Ben-Ami has said before, we understand the gatekeepers having their responsibility, but again, that authority only goes but so far. Here on the eve of Yom Kippur, we would expect another decision. We would expect another intervention, so to speak. And again, in Ben-Ami's words, no power on earth will or can stop us from manifesting our destiny in this land.
Well, my brother, we will be following this very closely. We'll keep our audience updated. And, of course, I want to thank you for staying up very, very early in the morning to make this happen. It is past 3 in the morning in Israel right now. So thank you for staying up, and thank you for sharing your story.
Hello, everybody. I want to introduce you to The Great Debate by Dr. Walter Williams. He single-handedly laid out the facts in this powerful debate against Mr. Munir Muhammad of the Nation of Islam, Chester Blair, a prominent lawyer in Chicago, Illinois, and Reverend Henry Hardy, a prominent minister in Chicago, and Prince Ethiopian Israel of the Hebrew Israelites. This debate was hosted by a retired policeman named W.L. Lillard. Now, the whole thing was a setup by Lillard and his gang. but it didn't work. They brought what they believed to the table, but Dr. Walter Williams brought what he knew for a fact and what he could prove and laid it on the table. We are now in the age of knowing. The age of walking around believing in stuff is over. For your copy of The Great Debate, go to tahakadataelimination.org. That's tahakadataelimination.org, or contact me by phone. My number's on the website. Oh, and by the way, the lawyer got bust up too. The Great Debate, get your copy today. Good day and peace.
These Ethiopian children pray with the Torah, a part of the Hebrew Bible. They are some of Ethiopia's last remaining Jews. About 4,000 Jewish Ethiopians, who call themselves Beta Israel, live here in Gondar, a small city in the north. This school teaches children about their Jewish faith, but also prepares them for a possible move to Israel.
If they learn Hebrew and if they learn about their religion, it'll help. They'll create mutualism and integrate within the society there and support one another in all matters.
Beta Israel members want Israel to give them a visa to emigrate, but some in Gondar have been waiting more than 20 years. Ashenafi Asefa moved from the countryside to Gondar 12 years ago. Now he's one of the synagogue's religious leaders. He explains the origins of Judaism in Ethiopia.
We came to Ethiopia because God dispersed the Beta Israel into the 4 cardinal directions. So we came down from Egypt. We came here following the shores of the Blue Nile. Others went to America, Germany, and many other countries.
Under Israeli law, Jews are allowed to move to the country, but the Israeli government doesn't view the Beta Israel of Gondar as Jewish under strict religious law. That's because the government says they are descendants of Ethiopian Jews who were forcibly converted to Christianity in the distant past.
Many of them actually converted, or their parents converted to Christianity for various reasons, and now they wish to return to be part of the Jewish people. They are not considered as Jews, so they already live as Jews, but officially they are not yet converted, so they are not yet Jews.
Ashenafi Asefa says this is discrimination.
Some say we're not Jewish and there are no more Jews here. They say we're lying, that we're just pretending so we can go there. They think we'll make the religion impure. But the only one to know the truth is the God that created us.
Many of the Beta Israel community have family living in Israel. The Israeli government has been gradually allowing Ethiopia's remaining Jews to emigrate under family reunification laws. But it's not clear when people will be allowed to go, leaving some families split for more than a decade.
Being alone is very difficult. My husband was raised by his mother together with his 6 brothers, but now 5 live in Israel. He was very sad when they got separated.
Workinesh Akalu moved to Gondar from her farm with her husband and children after someone burnt down their crops. Her life in Gondar is tough, but she's grateful her daughter can attend the town's Hebrew school.
With knowledge about her religion, she will marry someone who has the same faith and follow the religious practices. I hope she will one day live with her family and her people. I really hope that for my children.
Despite the struggle and wait, hope is high among Gondar's Jews that one day they will be allowed to leave. They just don't know when.
Solomon Tekka, a 19-year-old Ethiopian Israeli, was shot and killed by a police officer last summer. In March, his family and supporters showed up at the officer's trial. The officer said the shooting was an accident after he fired at the ground. He faces a maximum of 3 years in prison. Tekka's death wasn't the first to rally the Ethiopian Israeli community. Over the past 5 years, 6 young Ethiopian men have been killed by cops, according to a local advocacy group, leading to huge protests across the country. None of the officers were prosecuted until now. This might sound a lot like the Black Lives Matter movement in America, but for Ethiopian Israelis, their struggle for acceptance is complicated by both race and religion. They're facing injustice in the world's only Jewish state, even though they're also Jewish. Young Ethiopian Israelis like the rapper Teddy Neguse have been at the forefront demanding change. He's best known for the song Handcuffed, which became something of an anthem for the protest movement. What are some of the lyrics that you think speak the strongest to people, that resonate with them the most?
אני זה בעיה, אני זה המיעוט, אני זה הסיכון, זה הצבע הלבוש.
אני זה העלומה, תביאו את הבילוש. אני זה העילה, לא צריך לצף חיפוש. תצלם בפלאפון, תעלה לפייסבוק.
The music video was based on a real-life act of police brutality. In 2015, 2 police officers were involved in the beating of an Ethiopian Israeli soldier. Neither officer was charged. The visuals are pretty strong.
Yeah, I knew that I need to bring it to the Israeli audience, for them to understand what I'm speaking about. It's me making myself as all the issues of racism and police brutality reflected on me.
Ethiopian Jews started coming to Israel in large numbers in the mid-1980s as part of a government push to help Jews from around the world resettle in Israel. More than 20,000 of them were airlifted out of persecution and political instability into a promise of citizenship and belonging. Teddy's family was among them.
So basically, what my mom doing now, she's making buna.
Buna.
Yeah, it's coffee. It's like a tradition when all the family sit around the table.
Like I can help her?
Yeah, you can help her. You need to move them. You need to move them like she's doing.
The whole time?
We need it crispy but not burnt.
This is the coffee the entire family is going to be drinking?
Yeah.
So if I mess it up, it's going to be a problem?
You can have a problem with a lot of people.
זה בסדר? קצת. כן.
Once in Israel, Ethiopian Jews found that they weren't always welcome. Since they lived in isolation for thousands of years, some of their traditions differed from modern Judaism.
יפה! וואו.
As an Ethiopian Jew in Israel, do you feel equal to white Jews?
אנחנו יהודים לכל דבר. אנחנו אין לנו ארץ אחרת. ארץ הקודש זה מה שאנחנו. אנחנו גם מרגישים ככה. זאת אומרת, למרות שיש מוסדות כאלה וכאלה שלא רוצים, לא כל כך מקבלים אותנו.
אני לא פחות מלבן, ברור שלא. ואני גם עושה הכל כדי שאני לא אהיה שונה. ומי שמסתכל תמיד יסתכל באופן לא שווה.
This is actually my grandfather's synagogue.
Oh, this is it?
Yeah, this is it. Yeah.
The synagogue of your late grandfather.
Yeah. It's a very special place. Yeah, it's a very special place. You're a Jew, I mean, it's not connected to your race or something or how you look like. You're just a Jew. And there's people who come here and they're non-Ethiopians and pray with the Ethiopians. And my grandfather was very believing that you know, you should let everybody come. You should let everybody come and pray.
Late last year, Israel's top religious authority, the Chief Rabbinic Council, formally recognized the community's Jewishness. Rabbi Shlomo Omar was a member of the council until 2013 and advocated for the change.
Ethiopian Jews moved here over 40 years ago. Why did it take so long for them to be fully recognized?
אין תיעוד בתעודות ברור מי יהודי או לא יהודי, אין תיעוד ברור באתיופיה. ואז צריכים לברר, יכול להיות שבשביל זה הרבנות הראשית חיכתה שייתנו לה את העבודה, לעשות אותה בצורה נכונה, בצורה מקורית ומדויקת. זה לא עלבון, זה לא שדוחים אותם חס ושלום.
Have you experienced any racism within the council that would make Ethiopian Israelis feel this way?
אני נתקלתי בבעיות, לא חושב שזה גזענות. כמובן שלפעמים, מדי פעם יש יוצא מן הכלל, ואז זה מקים תגובה לפעמים גם קשה, כי זה כואב להם. הם סבלו שם אלפי שנים, בגלל שהם יהודים, אז אנחנו באים פה ופה, אנחנו צריכים לסבול ביהודים. אז אפילו סבל קטן, בעיניהם הוא גדול.
The Israeli government says it's doing what it can. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has publicly condemned racism towards Ethiopian Israelis.
אנחנו נאבקים בנחישות בגילויים של גזענות ואפליה. בשום פנים ואופן לא נסבול תופעות כאלו במדינת היהודים הדמוקרטית.
Protests over police brutality prompted the government to launch a series of reforms, including opening a hotline for public complaints and creating a task force to root out institutional racism across its ministries and law enforcement. Aweke Zena is in charge of the unit.
When you speak about these reforms that you've implemented, have you had any pushback from the government? Have you had any pushback from the general public?
It's very complicated, you know. It's a very sensitive issue.
Yeah.
You know, no one wants to create or to be to charge racism.
Which reforms have been the most difficult to implement?
In my view, the policy reforms is most difficult.
Why is that?
Because first they are big organization, and second, I think they still believe they are doing good, and they are not see the problem, how they are policing, how they are treat people, how they are enforce the law, and unfortunately, we didn't yet to cooperate and to convince them to take the step to change.
We reached out to the Israeli police, but they declined to speak with us. Young Ethiopian Israeli men, like Teddy's friends, doubt government reforms can change what really matters, how they're seen by the broader Israeli society.
Most of the Israelis are not racist, but they're silent. They are silent, and being silent when you see racism is, you know, more
part of the problem.
A problem.
Yeah.
So if we will fight, we will, you know, be activists for that. Maybe the rest of the Israelis will, you know, be with us and make a statement against racism.
Mm-hmm. How do you all identify? Like Ethiopian, Israeli, Jewish? For me, I'm both of them. What first? Ethiopian. What first? Ethiopian.
Ethiopian?
Yeah.
Then Israeli?
Yeah.
And what about you, bro?
I'm Ethiopian, then Jew, then Israeli. Because I feel like they don't want us here. Sorry, man.
Teddy sees reason for optimism in his fan base. They're young and diverse.
I think that our generation is on the halfway of bringing the solution. I mean, just like for me to grow up with people who are not Ethiopian, and for them to feel about me like I'm their friend and I'm their brothers. Like, so I think this is what can fix racism. When you know the person, you will not afraid him, you will not shoot him, you will not do anything to harm him, because you know he's just like you.
Jerusalem, the city of gold, a source of inspiration for Jews, Christians, and Muslims. The Book of Psalms says, "If I forgot thee, O Jerusalem, let my right hand forget her cunning." But could it be that biblical Jerusalem is actually more than 100 kilometers south of the city we revere today as the Holy City? One group living in the Holy Land thinks so.
They would come and pray after they presented themselves, they would come and pray. And the most interesting part about this Pacific Western Wall, and this is the actual prayer, this is the actual Western Wall. Yeah. But understand something, this is not the temple wall. This is the Mount Zion wall that David created before Solomon created the temple. The temple was on this hill right here. This is Mount Moriah Hill.
Tel Arad is an ancient site close to the Dead Sea. It contains 5 layers of history, including findings from the biblical era. For the average person, it is indeed an impressive sight, but not a holy one. But Hoshua Amerial, who arrived here from Chicago in the late 1980s, is convinced that these are the remains of biblical Jerusalem.
David was right there, and he was first made king at Hebron. Hebron is right there. You see, so what David did, David came out of Hebron. The first act he did, he came out of Hebron, down into this area surrounded by mountains, not on the top of the mountains, where Melchizedek Jerusalem was, but an area surrounded by mountains, and he took a fort. And that fort that he took is we're standing in today. And that became known as the Citadel of David. But David did something very unique. And all the archaeologists in Israel will tell you this. Yeah. Where we're standing at right now is the first in history what is called a king sanctuary.
Hoshua blames 2nd century CE Roman Emperor Hadrian for the belief that Jerusalem is in fact in the Judean hills.
It was a plan. It was an outright Christian conspiracy. The Christian, his name was Hadrian. Right. And this was before Christianity actually existed. But Hadrian had a plan because he felt that if the Jews or Hebrew people ever found Mount Zion, that would start a new world order. And so what happened was that he put a proclamation that stopped all Jews or the children of Israel from entering this land, this area for 200 years. Constantine then came. But Hadrian did something. He renamed all the areas, everything in this area, he renamed it. But he called this city here Aelia Capitolonia. So I have maps that prove and that show that this here is the actual Aelia Capitolonia.
I-24 News has followed Hoshua and his community, known as Beit Israel, or the Tel Arad Israelites. They perform different rituals during Jewish holidays, such as Passover and Sukkot. We also covered their legal struggle against the Israeli Nature and Parks Authority. The group wants to declare Tel Arad a holy place and provide limited access to visitors. However, for now, court decided to leave the situation as it is.
The land people came to me first, and they said to me, Mr. Mariel, let's settle out of court. Right. They said, we'll give you, and all I like to say, I always say $4 million. They offered me 4 million shekels. So then a judge called me into his chambers and said, Mr. Mariel, you have a landmark case. He said, but I just want to inform you, we're not going to give you the land of Israel.
Hoshua now wants to take the case to the International Court in Hague. Meanwhile, he's very concerned about racial tension in the United States following the death of African-American George Floyd. But his proposal to the African-American community is quite out of the left field.
I'm saying today, it's time for us to stop fighting the police in America, because the police system in America was never set up to protect the black community. And my suggestion is to leave America, to accept Thomas Jefferson's bill.
Settle here in Israel?
The ultimate objective is this is supposed to be the house of prayer for all people. But to answer your question, there's only one place in the world that has been purchased for black Americans, and that's Liberia.
Recently, Hoshua and his family have started to tour the Negev desert, perhaps as a tribute to the wandering Israelites. And though most historians and scholars will disagree with him, for him, this must be Jerusalem. Jerusalem.
sometimes when somebody finds out I'm Jewish, they ask me about my history. How can somebody who looks like me be Jewish? It's not a completely unfair question. The most famous Jews are people like Woody Allen, or Barbra Streisand, and Jerry Seinfeld. But it's a question that stems from a common misconception, that many understand typical Jews to be white people who immigrated from Eastern Europe. When Hollywood standardizes this Eurocentric viewpoint, it betrays reality.
Yeah, what does that mean?
What do you mean by that? Enjoy. Because the image of Jewishness is actually a wide array of Jewish characters, cultures, and something far broader than just skin color. Whether we're talking about European, Ethiopian, Yemenite, Indian, Asian, or Turkish Jews, the story of racial and ethnic diversity of the Jewish people goes back millennia. The story of Jews in the Americas, including black Jews, begins only about 400 or 500 years ago. The Israelites who built an independent kingdom in the land of Israel 4,000 years ago probably didn't look like this. Thousands of years of moving throughout the world has led to the diversification of Jewish identity. There is no one Jewish look. Over 2,000 years ago, the tribes of Israel were scattered from their biblical homeland and haven't stopped moving since. Spain, Iraq, Iran, India, and parts of Africa have all had Jewish populations for hundreds, if not thousands of years. In the late 15th century, after the Spanish Inquisition, when authorities passed a decree forcing Jews to convert to Catholicism, many Jews fled to the New World and Jewish communities began to develop. As the colonies expanded, Jews from across Europe continued to immigrate. It wasn't long after this that the first black Jews appeared in America, when in the 1500s, European colonizers in Africa began sending African slaves to their newly built colonies in the Americas. According to research, it's highly possible that the first black Jews in the New World came as slaves from Jewish communities in Africa, like the Ethiopian Jews known as the Beta Israel. During the 15 and 1600s, slave ownership became more and more common in the New World. Over time, these slaves took on the faith of the homes in which they were enslaved, whether by choice or by force. For most, that meant becoming Christians. But for a small group of slaves, that meant becoming Jews. Over time, some of these Jewish slaves or their descendants were sold to slave owners in the United States. While records are sparse, there are accounts of at least some black slaves in the U.S. who maintained their Jewish faith and identity. Regardless of whether they were Jewish or not, black slaves felt a strong connection with the Israelites of the Bible who were rescued from slavery in Egypt and chosen by God for a unique destiny. A verse from Psalms particularly bolstered this connection. Princes shall come out of Egypt, and Ethiopia shall soon stretch forth her hands unto God. This verse empowered and uplifted many, while leading others to believe it to be a proof of a historical connection between the biblical Israelites and modern-day black peoples. With the Great Migration of the early 20th century, millions of black Americans relocated to northern states in search of opportunity and to escape racist Jim Crow laws. Around the 1920s, black leaders founded Jewish-inspired African-American congregations. For some, these communities would be a path to joining mainstream denominational Judaism, namely through the path of conversion. Conversions would go on to become more common among black Americans in the decades to follow. The most famous example of conversion was the world-famous singer, actor, and comedian Sammy Davis Jr. Born to a Catholic mother and a Baptist father, Davis began his journey to Judaism after surviving a car crash in 1954. He discovered the similarities between Judaism and black culture from his friend, comedian Eddie Cantor, which led Davis to study the religion further and eventually convert. Another notable convert from this time was the civil rights activist Charles McDew. He converted to Judaism in high school, finding inspiration from a quote from the Ethics of the Fathers, "If I am only for myself, what am I? If not now, when?" McDew felt that this quote established a moral obligation to fight injustice and would become a mantra for him in his decades-long fight for civil rights. High-profile converts like these lead many people to believe that if they're meeting a black Jew, they're meeting a convert. But that's not the case, especially today. I myself am not a convert, nor were my parents. My father is a black Christian from Georgia, where his family had been for generations, while my Jewish mother's family came to Kansas from Eastern Europe. While interracial marriages like my parents are not unusual today, They used to be extremely uncommon and were even illegal in many states until 1967. That's when the Supreme Court ruled in Loving versus Virginia against anti-miscegenation laws, allowing for legal interracial marriage across the U.S. Many of those marriages were between blacks and Jews. In the second half of the 20th century, the number of black Jews increased significantly. This included those born Jewish, those adopted into Jewish families, and those who converted. That tapestry was on display in December 1993 at a symposium at the California African American Museum entitled Where Worlds Collide, The Souls of African American Jews. Shortly thereafter, black and multiracial Jews began forming organizations to support their particular concerns, issues, and Jewish heritage. In 1995, Robin Washington founded the National Conference of Black Jews. Around the year 2000, Falasha was founded to support Jewish interracial families. Around the same time, Yavila McCoy, a black Orthodox diversity educator and consultant, started the Ayeka Resource Organization to provide support and resources for a multidimensional Jewish identity. Other multiracial Jewish organizations include Jews in All Hues, founded in 2009 by Jared Jackson, the Jews of Color Initiative, founded in 2016, and Joyous Justice, founded by April and Baskin that same year. The work of individuals and organizations like these and others have helped Jews and non-Jews alike appreciate the extent to which the Jewish people are a multiracial community. This shift has been aided in no small part by the fame of notable and talented black Jewish performers in pop culture. Actors such as Daveed Diggs, Tiffany Haddish, and Rashida Jones have become household names. Drake, Yitz Jordan, aka Y-Love, Shine, once known as Jamal Barrow but now Moses Levi Barrow, Lenny Kravitz, and Nissim Black have all had success in the music industry. However, as much as black Jews have become accepted in popular culture, race relations in America have remained complicated, especially in the realm of identity politics. When supporters of the Black Lives Matter movement engaged in protests beginning in 2016, many black Jews, rabbis, and rabbinical students joined them in protests, reading from the Book of Lamentations, blowing the shofar, and reciting the mourner's Kaddish. However, as individuals and leaders within the BLM movement have spoken in opposition to Israel and Zionism, with a few groups going so far as to exclude Jewish organizations and participants, many black Jews find themselves in a difficult situation where aspects of their identity seem in conflict, a dilemma between race and their religious and cultural identity. Today, black, Latino, Asian, Mizrahi, and other non-white Jews make up 20% of the American Jewish population. This group is often referred to as Jews of color, though the term is contested and I personally don't identify as a Jew of color, which you can read more about in my article on the subject linked below. Despite growing awareness within the Jewish community, many Jews of color continue to feel that Jewish individuals and organizations treat them as other, requiring them to explain and justify their existence and fight biases within their community. Especially in this cultural moment where racial awareness is in high focus, strengthening the bond between Jews of all colors is a realization of our most important Jewish values, that we unite as a people in our shared mission while treating all humans with respect and dignity.